All right, so as societal decay accelerates and the various institutions that knit together our world start to fray at the seams, it's going to become more obvious what the end result is going to be. I'm talking rhetorically here, but we're talking obviously about the intersect of conflict, climate, and contagion, and all the calamity that accompanies it in terms of the breakdown, the slow and subtle degradation of our way of life here in the West. But as we approach the climax of all of that, which is inevitable at this point, the end becomes more obvious. It becomes more tangible. What was a mirage in the distance starts to take form, right? And the signs pointing towards that become so incredibly on the nose obvious, which is the case with Burning Man 2023. You could not find a better social experiment simulating the collapse of Western suburbia than the steampunk cosplay simulated apocalyptic universe that is Burning Man. Think about the situation for a second, what's going on at Burning Man right now. If you didn't know, this makeshift city of 70 to 80,000 people in the middle of the Nevada desert, typically very hot, they got 3 months worth of rain in a day. Okay, and this caused the festival to have to shut down and declare essentially a state of emergency. Now, think about that for a second, because a lot of people are probably, who partake in these types of events, are fairly progressive from a climate science point of view, and are probably fairly progressive in terms of what they think they're willing to do and change in their lives, as long as it doesn't impede on their ability to self-indulge for 7 to 10 days out of the year in the middle of the desert and likely discharge a disproportionately high carbon footprint for that period of time, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying it's very ironic that in this simulated Mad Max world, which is what Burning Man is, they dress up very tribalistically like it's the end of the world and everybody's got their steampunk cars and art exhibits and all this stuff. And these people are also, ironically, perhaps fairly well-to-do, north of 100,000 a year net average income for a lot of these people. It's expensive to go to Burning Man, especially in 2023. It's going to cost you between 5 to 10 grand. And that's before you set up your grand exhibit, before the cost of your trailer and your glamping experience, whatever it might be, to get you there. So it's expensive, okay? But just think about the poetry of all of this. You have simulating the end of the world, suburbia, Western suburbia, simulating the end of the world, and the end of the world effectively happens. Or this state of emergency, this climate aberration, which almost never happens, just happens. And this is 1 year after that massive traffic jam, and I'm not sure what the cause of that was, but there was iconic scenes coming out of Burning Man last year with a 18-lane traffic jam, 18 lanes, and it was backed up for over a mile. And the pictures of that are just stunning. Okay, so you're seeing this happen more and more. It's almost like as we get close to the finish line, people are just trying to get it in. They're just trying to indulge in whatever manage of decadence and psychopharmaceutical debauchery that they can muster, because, time's running out. I got to get my rocks off, right? And I'm not throwing shade on people who like to party. I used to party like that. But, this point in time, this day and age, it's just humorous. I mean, imagine you're an alien civilization, right? And you're up there in your cloaked spacecraft in the upper stratosphere or whatever, eating popcorn, watching this whole collapse of human civilization unfold. And you're watching these people simulate the apocalypse, because that's what the Burning Man thing is. I don't know what the name of the town is, but it is kind of simulating this steampunk apocalypse environment. And the result of their mismanagement of things leads to this climactic emergency, this aberration that never happens, And I mean, it happens. They get floods, but typically not during this event and not such a condensed amount of rain in such a short period of time. I mean, Vegas is being washed away right now. I mean, it is, the things happening nowadays are just, it's a comedy. And the only reason why I'm saying it's a comedy is because I know all those people are going to be fine. They're going to be rescued. Yes, they have to ration resources. They have to manage their own sanitation. They have to, manage their own little rule of law that's going to take place there. But I think for the most part, most of these people are law-abiding because, of course, they do come from more well-to-do neighborhoods of the Western world, you could say. And thus they have disposable income. Most of them come well prepared because, of course, Burning Man is in the middle of the desert. So one of the key things is you got to be prepared, right? So it's simulating this apocalyptic world, and then this happens. And you couldn't have picked a better social experiment for how things are going to play out. Now, what I wish they would do is I wish they would let it go for like a couple weeks, just to see what would happen, just to see what sort of tribalistic alliances are formed and what the whole dynamics of like the anthropological, sociological dynamics, how that all unfolded under those austere conditions where there's a limited amount of resources, just the whole game theory aspect of it. That's what I would be interested in. Now, a lot of people who are, of the conspiracy-minded ilk will likely think that this was, planned. It's an experiment to see how people are going to survive because they're effectively under lockdown. You can't leave. You can't drive your vehicle out. I think some people are walking out, and that's their choice, but you can't actually take your vehicle out because it will damage the roads, which will just create even more bottlenecks and lead to something like they seen with that 8-hour traffic jam last year. But it would be interesting to see how this would play out. And I'm quite certain that governments of the world would look at something like this. Because as much as it's not a one-to-one cross-section of American society, again, most of the people who attend Burning Man have a decent net worth. A lot of celebrities go to it, in fact. It would be interesting to see how things played out when water started becoming more limited, when food started becoming more limited. This is an experiment you could never run. You could never run this experiment in the real. You almost have to look for real world examples to see what would happen. We know what would happen, but it would be interesting to see what would happen with people who typically are, I shouldn't generalize here, but I'm going to go out on a limb and presume that there's probably a lot of sanctimonious people who attend that type of thing. I was sanctimonious when I attended those types of things. And it would just be interesting to see how they regressed into their tribalistic primal selves who just needed to feed or to drink or, do whatever they needed to do to get through the day. It would be interesting to have a little case study there. But I tell you, man, as we approach the end, these signs are going to become more obvious because it's going to become more undeniable that, oh yeah, the end of the system is right there. Be it financial, if you're looking at it with respect to our financialist system, with respect to the climate chaos that's ensuing around the world, or the geopolitical tension and the possibility for even more contagions to be released. Now we're in a state of war, so the possibility of biowarfare increases drastically. And today, when I look outside, it's like the movie The Road. Every day for, I would say almost half of the days this year, it's looked like The Road outside. The smoke is so thick in the air today, you can't even stand out there for more than half an hour. The scale of these fires is on a whole new level. And people are scared. People are starting to realize, oh shit, this massive injection of, especially if you are a climatologist, you're looking at this massive injection of CO2 in the atmosphere. There's going to be some people saying, yeah, the plants can use that. Yeah, the plants can use that if it wasn't, dry in certain places and too wet in other places. Anyways, But it looks apocalyptic out there, man. I mean, this is what I would expect. You know, if I'm narrating the apocalypse, a story about the apocalypse, I'll go back and I'll say, you know, back in 2015, it started with the fires. People thought it was just a cyclical thing. You know, then people started fighting. Then there was a pandemic, and then people just thought it was the government trying to, get one over them, and it probably was to some extent. But then another pandemic came, and then the war got worse, and then the nukes started dropping, and the forest of the Great Fire of 2027 destroyed like 13% of the Siberian forest that year. You know, this is how you would imagine that the thing is going to play out. This is how it starts, right? But it's accelerating. It's accelerating fast in the same way that the rapidity of the escalation in the war has been happening in just the last month. You're seeing that same thing happen in other domains of systems collapse as well. So I guess this was a great experience for people who attended Burning Man, because they got a sense of what it's going to be like. It was a great survival, challenge, if you will, because it's more realistic too. It's not just you living by yourself in the woods. It's you being surrounded by 70,000 strangers who all have a limited amount of resources. You don't know how long you're going to be there for. You have to ration those resources. And I guarantee you that there's that sort of sense of neediness in people's eyes there that is going to impact the social dynamics. It's one thing when all your needs are met and everybody's partying in decadent mode, in expressive mode. It's another thing altogether when you're immediately forced to retract into your shell and be protective and be in defensive mode in that type of environment. And it's interesting to see how those same people are going to change in that environment and become their true primal versions of themselves. Anyways, we're going to keep on keeping on. We did a video yesterday about NutriStore foods. You can use the coupon code NutriStore2023 to get 10% off. Just like what you're seeing behind me here, I can tell you guys right now, I have insider information that food prices are going up once again. Okay? And stockpiling food right now is just one of those things that is never going to be a bad thing. Of course, you want shelf-stable food. Go and watch that video. I make those videos for myself, for the team, for my kids, so that if I do untimely pass someday, they have something to look back and they can say, oh, Dad's channel wasn't all doom and gloom. He had some fun too. So we try to have some fun. In that video, if you guys are familiar with the characters, if you missed it, Normalcy Norman finally meets up with All-American Prepper and the Canadian Prepper in this post-apocalyptic world. And they're trying to all reach their goals. And you can just see how the interaction plays out. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think about this Burning Man situation. And I guess how it fits into this systems collapse that we're seeing. And what are your observations about it in terms of, what would you do in that particular situation? I'm sure most of my viewers would never put themselves in that situation. But, if you did, what would your approach be? All right. So thanks for watching, guys. Just this short Sunday video. I may do a breaking news update of all of the daily events, of which there is no short supply, I assure you. But I just wanted to get this one out there because it just seemed eerily prophetic that sort of thing is happening now so frequently. All right, you take care. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.